There's always a better way to do what you're doing right now. So be grateful. Now they're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to do, right? And I was like, no, programmatic is where my heart is. Amen. Welcome to the Programmatic Digest podcast, everyone. My name is Ellen Parker. I'm your host, and I have a special guest today, Seraj Bharwani from Acuity Ads. He's the Chief Strategy Officer at Acuity Ads. Welcome to the podcast, Seraj. How are you doing?
Thank you, Ellen. Delighted to be here.
I am very excited to talk to you today because I've known of Acuity Ads for quite some time, but I've came across a booth from a good friend of mine, Eric Schwartz, who's on your team.
Yes.
And he started talking to me about, he was one of the only programmatic table at the conference I attended. So it was nice to have almost like a cousin or a neighbor, like, oh, you know what I'm talking about. And he mentioned Illumine, which is one of the conversations we're going to have, the DSP that you're with. But in addition to that, we're going to talk about measurement. We're going to talk about, answering the question, the media value base, is it based on currency or measurement? So you'll help us really demystify what we understand as measurement, maybe talk about some brand safety. But before we hit the conversation, how about you give us a quick introduction by yourself, how you got to where you are, okay? And then maybe a goal that you have in the next year.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I think I had never imagined myself being in advertising or marketing.
You're not the first person to say that.
I was trained as an engineer. And my degree from MIT is in artificial intelligence. I did my degree way back in the late 80s, the early years of what is called autonomous navigation. That's what my thesis is on, which is all robotic vision. So I always imagined myself working in some advanced defense lab or aeronautics lab or something like that. But when I was at MIT, I got exposed to the media lab, and the media lab was a crucible for media fusion.
Oh, wow.
Which was a fascinating environment where I began to learn sort of this emergence of the new media. And then finally in 1994, when the commercial internet came into existence with the Mosaic, browser, and then the Netscape browser and so forth.
Wow.
There were a few of us who actually partnered together to imagine that potentially there will be some exciting things to be done in this whole new environment that was called the internet. Wow. And so that translated into us starting up the first digital advertising agency, focusing on the strategies of how brands could actually go and take advantage of this whole new access point and relationship building opportunity. And so that was it. That was my beginning. And then that just was crazy high growth environment in the early years. So we really had a great time, had big clients like LL and American Express, Delta Airlines, Kraft General Foods, the big enterprise Fortune 50, which had their own unique demands, and so forth. And so it was fine. It was great. We went public and sold that business ultimately to Publicis Media, the holding company, in 2006.
Okay.
I finished my contract and jumped off, and then joined another CEO in a venture that was funded by General Catalyst, a VC firm, and that was called Visible Measures. And that's really where I focused maniacally on the metrics and the measurement tied to how to make sense out of online video. And there we were partners and the providers of third-party measurement for YouTube and ultimately Google and others. And that turned out to be an amazing runway for us. Very high growth. Where video has arrived already. Those were the early years when people were questioning what's video. And then we sort of now, nobody thinks that way. Everybody wants to do that. It's crazy. It's all going like in the right direction, all positive.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I sold Visible Measures to Acuity and then became the chief strategy officer and the public face of the company. Nice. Now, you asked me about Illumine at the time. This is where the past 3 years have gone for us. So anyway, I will let you lead us where you want me to go.
No, go ahead and talk to us about Lumen, because I had the quick demo during the conference. And so Eric had his screen and he was showing how, not only is it a DSP where you can buy and access different type of inventory. So he mentioned a little bit of social, a little bit of programmatic and things like that. But he also really focused on the journey.
Yes, and
Wow.
that's the big
It
deal.
was literally
That's
a
the
map.
big deal.
It was a map
Yeah.
that you could create. So
Yes.
for a trader like myself, when you hear journey, consumer journey, or even how do you really set up a journey in a DSP, you hear, okay, well, this line item, this ad group is going to focus at this point of your journey. So maybe it's upper funnel tactics. And then this ad group is going to focus on this. But we're going to layer some frequency in the way. But the way it looked, I was like, wow, this just simplified the whole thing, and then it visualized it for us. So for my friend listening, I'll try to work with Eric to probably give us a quick demo and have it like on our YouTube channel. But in the meantime, bear with us as Seraj is going to explain exactly what it is. And he's going to try to give us a visual exactly of why it's so cool. Like I was.
Yeah. I think the coolness is nice, clearly.
True.
But in our business, especially when you talk about programmatic media, people are so focused on results, as you know, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful about the way we talk about what is fundamentally different here in the way we think about it through Illumin. So Illumin was trying to solve a variety of problems. Okay. First among them is to start where you are. The idea of having interfaces that are intuitive, right? What made the Apple iPhone so successful? It was intuitive. It was easy to use. Anybody could use it, right? And I think that's been the situation, the opposite of it in programmatic trading. You've come through there, so you know that, right? To become a professional trader using programmatic media, it takes you some time, if not months, potentially years, to become experienced and so forth, right? And then even when you are experienced, the amount of time it takes to set up the line items at the different stages, what have you, how programmatic is actually run across line items. Sometimes some campaigns might have a dozen line items. Others could have hundreds of line items, depending on tactics, right?
Literally.
Yes, exactly. And so our CEO one day just kind of looked at us and challenged us, like, does programmatic advertising always have to run this way? Why can't we simplify this? Aren't there ways to do this thing? And so we took on that challenge, and that was like 3 years ago, maybe 3.5. Oh, wow. And we started rethinking, okay, maybe the whole metaphor needs to be journey, because that's the way agencies and marketers plan programs. When they're planning the entire marketing program, they look at all touch points and they want a way to map it. They want a way to then execute it, and they want a way to measure it and ultimately create attribution. So to know which particular touch points have a predominant impact on ultimately producing the results. And the results could be brand-related results on effectiveness, or it could be engagement, or it could actually be conversion-related metrics, which could be anything from I'm interested in doing this, and here's the form I filled out, which is a lead, or I am ready to buy something. And so therefore, if it's a commerce site, I have real evidence of somebody actually buying stuff. I know if certain touch points actually, or a combination of those, drove higher order value than others. So these things, if they could be done in a single canvas, we call it the journey canvas, if they could all be accomplished, and if you wanted to overlay third-party measurement or data or other things on top of it, all of it could be done in one single interface on the same page. Now that's a breakthrough, because we know there is no other platform where you can actually do it in this intuitive way. And there is plenty of other stuff to be added to this, by the way, because we don't plan. We plan by channels. I've seen you optimize by channels.
Yeah, that's true.
okay, so short form video will go through this kind of stuff and these metrics. Long form will do this thing. TikTok video will work some other way. Verticals will go some other way. There's so many specific things you can do, right? And as you add social and you add email, SMS, which are organic, and other levels of media, life gets extremely complicated. And this platform is designed to address all of that with the knowledge that how upper funnel or upstream interactions actually ultimately have an impact on downstream performance.
Yeah,
The fluidity of the movement, the way you can interact and so forth and change in real time.
that's true.
Test creative. I mean, I can just keep going on and on. There's so many things you can do when the structuring is based on this type of a journey level of depiction. So that's really it. That's Illumine in a nutshell.
I think based on what I haven't used Illumine yet, right? I've used a lot of DSP out here in the streets, but not Illumine yet. But based on the demo that I received and based on my conversation with your team, it really is going to simplify the setup process and then the reporting process, because now you have clarity on where some touch points are happening, like you said. And I think if you break it down at the buyer level, at the ad ops level, even at the account management level, I think it's a conversation that needs to be understood internally.
Yes.
Have with
Yeah.
the client, because you now just had a 30 minutes before the recording, right, about educating why the importance even of internet marketing, right? Like,
Yeah,
why are
completely.
we in a situation like here? Why is there so many issues? Why are brands still pushing? Well, because we have done a great job at complicating things for our clients. Just look at
Yeah,
the word
yeah,
programmatic,
completely,
automated,
completely. Yeah,
automatic
exactly.
digital advertising. Like, why are we so complicated, right? But ultimately, again, if you are not able to explain it, and that I firmly believe this. Matter of fact, I forgot to ask you the question. I always ask the question to to my guests, but if you're not able to define programmatic or what you do in a day-to-day to a 5-year-old, then you might need to really reassess, like, are you really clear on what you're supposed to do? Are you really clear on the whole programmatic world?
Understood, understood.
Right?
I think yes, and the journey metaphor has taken on
Different.
quite well, by the way, because it's the way, as I said,
Mhm.
marketers and media buyers like to think about things. So it's easier for us. Now it's just a matter of them using it and running it, and many have been for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
I would hope that you can train the people who really look to advice from you to get them acclimated to this way of thinking about it. And the more people are trained on this thing, the more easier it's going to be, because it's really fast. I mean, you can set up a campaign in like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
really. And that saves ton of time. We've had people at IPG and other holding companies who are actually using it and
Good.
have literally told their own clients that the amount of time and savings we get out of this thing, there's just no question that why we shouldn't be spending so much more money on this thing. So yeah, there is enough validation now.
Yeah. And I think also it is accessible by every brand, right? So we talk about the big brands, but there are also a lot of medium-sized, smaller, medium-sized brands out there that can access Illumine. So it's
Absolutely. The one word that our CEO uses often is democratizing programmatic advertising.
like
Make
that.
it easy for everybody at all levels, whether it is a mid-tier, lower tier, upper tier, wherever levels, how much money they spend. There are no minimums, by the way. And so there should be no limitations for people to be able to run anything they want to run. Seriously, that's really it.
So let's talk about, I think it's a good segue into, the first question I really, really proving the value of what we do. Because
Mhm.
I mean, you even said that a lot of the things we do is very, very result driven. It's very, what is that end number at the end of the campaign? And we tend to remove the consumer out of it because we tend
Yes.
to focus on the consumer, right? Because we have that CPA income, we have that ROAS, return of an ad investment, ad spend, that number in our mind. So we forget everything, all the other touch points. So how do you have that conversation with some of those partners or clients or brands where you prove that the media isn't just currency, it is in the measurement, or is it? Like, how do you answer that?
Yeah, so I would say that we should probably unpack this in stages.
Okay. Okay.
First, big question
Mhm.
for everybody is, and the debate has been going on for a while, and I think it's becoming a little bit clearer now.
Mhm.
The debate always was, if you remember in the early years, for the brand or the upper funnel end of conversations were always, should we be buying as GRPs? And is GRPs kind of a dated way of measuring reach and frequency and all of that? And the people in digital were always complaining, it's like GRP is old, it's dated. We can do much more greater targeting now, so we can, precision target audiences that we want, and we can reach them when we want to reach them, and we have performance in real time. It's like, why are we messing around with GRP? Well, the fact of the matter is that discussion is now gradually becoming moot. And the way to think about it is, there is a way that you can buy media,
Mhm.
which is generally going to be reach and frequency.
Yeah.
We like that. What we like about reach and frequency, and would love it even more if we could prove that we are getting unduplicated reach and we are getting managed or controlled frequency.
Mhm.
If a marketer could be guaranteed of that, even if it is not 100%, but it is 80% on the unduplicated, I'm telling you, most marketers would be in the seventh heaven. The fact is, we can't do that yet. But the buying is still should be along those lines, with the goal of reaching unduplicated reach and control frequency. Fine, that's all good. So I do that and I buy it that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
But ultimately, the currency is in the results I derive from it. So somehow I need to be able to map the results back to the reach frequency the way I bought it. So I bought 1 pound of sugar.
Mhm.
Sure, a pound is a measure, but the success is in how happy did I get by using or eating sugar. That's the success. Okay. And so those are two different things. And the best thing you can do is to be able to correlate the two, to say greater sales correlated with, so sales is the currency. That's what we measure because that's how we drive business growth. To drive that much incremental sales, I need this much incremental reach and frequency. You see the combination between the two? One's a buying measure, the other is the currency with which we deal with to drive business profitability and growth.
Mhm.
So that's always going to be there. And the way to bring it back again to our earlier conversation,
Mhm.
when you have a journey laid out, which is both branding and awareness related at the upper end of it versus performance and result oriented at the bottom end of it,
Mhm.
your opportunity is to keep flexing reach and frequency and precision and audiences and all of that, and then see what combinations of those buying measures are converting into actual sales at the low end of the interaction. You see the connection between the two, and you need to be able to see that in literally real time to say, okay, I turned this knob and I removed these two creative and I improve frequency on the creative that's working by 2x.
Mhm.
Okay, did that result in higher order value? Did people buy more? Did people buy more often? Did I get new audiences that bought from me that never did before? You see the relationship between the two? You need to be able to see that relationship with your eyes
Mhm.
without getting confused with all the data that's happening behind the scenes.
Mhm.
That
Focusing on like
everybody deserves that, by the way,
Mhm.
because that's what we as humans like to understand as progress.
Mhm.
That we were able to make some changes, or the algorithm was able to make some changes, and as a result, we actually got better results. Oh, wow. Okay. So we learned something and now we can do more of this. And that's considered, okay, we are advancing. We are improving the marketing program. That's what all clients really want to hear. You know that, Ellen.
Mhm.
Many times when you deliver great news to the client,
Mhm.
they're not as excited when you just deliver the good news and say nothing.
You're like, this is
So they
great.
are,
Like,
yeah, this is great, but tell me why in the world are we doing great?
yeah.
And they want the rationale behind it. What did you do that
Mhm.
resulted in these better results so we can now replicate this thing in future and build a better business out of it, right? And so they want insights to go along with it. Just good news these days is not enough.
Hi, did you know that at Ellen Parker Consulting, we now offer an accelerator program where we attract, recruit, and train future marketers? And their training include a 6 weeks program where they cover programmatic landscape, important industry trends, the differences between targeting placement and targeting mix, and their best practices, including optimization and reporting hacks. And they're able to set up, manage, and monitor a campaign, a demo campaign in the trade desk, everything including audience selection, inventory optimization, SPO, creative upload, brand safety, you name it. They're able to do it at the end of the 6 weeks program. So if you are part of the 90% of employers struggling to find a skilled candidate today and not willing to spend $14,900 on a bad hire, according to Zipia, give us a call. Let's discuss which one of our 5 to 10 juniors available every month is the perfect fit for your team. Clients who have hired our juniors have shared that we were able to help them save 1 to 2 months onboarding with those juniors. Give us a
Yeah, it's not. I love that. And reach and frequency is those two, I don't know, there's those two things that are super important, you're right, from a client's perspective, because that's how they understand, that's how they're focused on that consumer, that client, that end customer. And that's actually the program, the training program that we created. That's the name of the program, Reach and Frequency.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I was playing on the most important. I said, if I had to really summarize my role as a trader or programmatic, it will be measurement and transparency, at least closer to reach and frequency. And then somebody in the social world just, gave me that idea, because it was either reach or frequency, and they were like, do the both, and they submitted like reach and frequency, and so that's the program, reach and frequency.
That's very nice.
So I do want to go back to a couple points that you made, right? You mentioned the term unduplicated reach. So me,
Yes.
my friends listening, what exactly is that? So I understand.
So really, here's the
What does
thing.
that mean?
Where you are not, let's start with where we don't have the good news, and
Okay.
then we go towards the good news, right?
Okay.
So let's say you're running a program which involves Google
Mhm.
on DV360, you're running Meta, and you're running Amazon. Okay.
Okay.
You've taken $100 and you've split up a third across the three.
Okay.
All right. You get the results and so forth. You're tabulating. All of this stuff is happening. Here's the issue. Because none of these platforms really give you any data back,
Mm.
you have no way of knowing that the people you reached on Google aren't the same people you reached on Meta, and they were the same people you reached on Amazon. You don't know that. That's the complete opposite of what I am asking for, or what marketers are asking for, which is give me unduplicated reach, which is they benefit the most generally if those were different audiences, because I reached. It's like saying, what's better? Reaching 1 million people 10 times or 10 million people once?
Mm.
The calculation of the impressions is the same. You still deliver 10 million impressions. I would much rather reach new people across all three of those platforms, in which case now I'm reaching the full semblance of the audience that's out there in the marketplace that is approachable through those platforms, because I narrow segmented it. I know I'm looking for, men and women 55 plus, whatever it is, right? But if I reach the same people over and over, obviously I'm not getting the full benefit of the reach that I really need, right?
Yeah.
That's what we are trying to solve for. That's not unduplicated reach. That's duplicated many times reach, right? So the problem we are trying to solve for is, how do we make sure that we get incrementality in the audiences we reach every time we go out there? The reason it's become a difficult problem to solve for, it's because we don't have interoperability. We don't have a common customer ID. All of those are serious problems, right? And that's where the issues are. And so if you come back to Illumin, at least within the programmatic open web space, we ensure that you are delivering unduplicated reach with the frequency that you have selected. So we are not reaching them more than how much we believe is the absolute minimum required, because one, if you control the frequency, you reduce the amount of annoyance for the consumer.
Yeah.
Because they get irritated if you keep dumping frequency. And two, you're saving money. So both are good things.
Yeah, I mean, there's another facet that frequency we don't talk about, right? Especially for this frequency capping, is that when you are launching a campaign, you have the ability to put that cap. Oh, only seven ads in a week or something like that.
That's right. That's right.
But the beauty of frequency is not only just the capping, it's the ability to, with the proper measurement in place, right, to understand that after a certain point, after a certain frequency, we don't need to target that customer as much. And that's when you come.
Absolutely. Yeah. For example, the whole idea, I mean, you are quite familiar with the idea of customer propensity, right? If someone has a high propensity to want to do business with you, how would you know that? Well, they already visited your site, okay? And therefore, they're clearly aware of your brand. Why would you want to do any awareness advertising for that person?
Yeah.
That's the thought. Very simple thought. In simple terms, if you know that they are clearly interested, then you should focus on giving them the messages which are far more relevant to get them over the hump of whatever is getting them and preventing them from doing business with you, and not keep giving them awareness, beautiful branding ads. Well, that's not really going to do, it just isn't going to do much for you, because they're already downstream, right? And that is the beauty, as you said, right? For those who don't need all of the upper funnel advertising, you can fast track those audiences and bring them to the real call to action and get them to do what they really are there to do. And they appreciate that. On the other hand, if you know that the propensity is not all that high and they simply are out of market, or as they call near market, then branding is clearly required. They need to know who you really are before they will further engage with you and get through that loop where they get stuck. I talk about this, what I call the messy middle loop. That Google did some research on this thing 3 years ago. They funded this research where they found that between awareness and purchase, there is this huge middle ground where people get stuck in this whole exploration of choices they have and evaluation and comparison of those choices. Is it the right thing for me? Is it the right value for me? Are there other choices that might be better for me? So what happens to consumers is they just get stuck in this thing because there are so many choices and there are a whole ton of confusing ads that are receiving in any category. Let's say they're looking for a facial cream, for example. Well, there are 10 providers of facial cream, and now they are in this constant loop of evaluation. Okay, is this the right thing for me? Is this for my right skin tone? This, that, and the other. And now they remain stuck. Now, unless the brand is there to guide them through those choices, they will just remain there, and one of two things will happen. Either the decision will get delayed, or, Alan, that decision will never get made because they got so confused. It's like, oh, I don't know if this is
I'm
for
one of
me.
those consumers. When I have too many choices, I'm like, you know what? It's just not meant to be right now. I'm not.
Exactly right. So that's what people do. And I think that's bad for the entire market and bad for the consumer because they have a need that they simply can't satisfy because we've confused the hell out of them, right? And so I think that's really the problem that we need to solve for and how much of that effort is required. And that would lead me to the discussion of the creative and the messaging. How do you educate? There's a term we never use. We use the term awareness, engagement, and conversion. I like to replace the term engagement with education.
Oh, that's
I
good.
think I think there is a lot of education to be done for the consumer before they will feel comfortable and have the conviction to decide, yes, now I know what I really need, and I can be very definite about what I want to buy.
Yeah,
And if the brands and the brand that is doing the education, in my opinion, will benefit the most.
that's really cool. Oh my gosh. I think we can talk to you for like hours, but I want to honor and respect your time. So if there's something that happens and the listener has to drop right now, what would be like one thing you want them to remember from our conversation? Like, and when I say one thing, it's more from an actionable insight. Like, remember this, now go do this.
Yeah, so there could be a ton of things that we could talk about,
Yeah,
but there is one basic thing to think about, right? Is that you, as a programmatic trader or a marketer, you must clearly be thinking from two angles. There's the consumer angle, which is something you cannot control. The consumer is going around and about their lives, and they will think, decide, read, watch, talk to somebody, get somebody's advice, an opinion from someone, validation from somebody. You can't control most of that stuff. But you can control how you message with consistency, with guidance and education to lead them where they need to go. Because with all the data and all the opinions that the consumer receives, they just feel frustrated and sometimes get lost, right? But you as a marketer's job is to guide them. And so your advertising should not be as much advertising as much guidance. And so if you take that approach, you will guide them to a place where they really need to be. And I'll summarize that with the Nike's approach to advertising. Nike isn't trying to sell you on anything that they make. All they want you to do is just go out and be active. They know that as long as you remain active as a consumer, 4 out of every 10 consumers who remain active and are doing something good for themselves and staying healthy and well will end up buying from Nike.
Wow, that's pretty cool. They're solving a problem, a consumer problem.
Absolutely. Just so worry about what the consumer's really looking for and sees as the true benefit. And if you are there to guide them to do that, then ultimately your business will definitely benefit from that as well.
That's really interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing. I think we needed to hear that again. Like we got a guide, and it's education. I am a big believer. My mission is to educate. So I definitely believe that more education out there can only help. It can only help.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And yeah, that's one of our mission here that what we do. But okay, so the last question before we end the recording would be, so what is one thing you wanna? I guess what is one thing you wish you knew that you know now if you were starting in the industry? So what is one thing you would tell Seraj, freshman Seraj, just starting? You said in 1994, you said you were starting Digitize? What is one thing you wish you knew that now you know?
So I would say that I was extremely impatient when I was young, early in my career. I
Okay.
wanted to do and learn everything right away.
Ooh,
And I've noticed that learning cannot be compressed.
ooh.
It comes over time. You really, really have to do lots of things. You have to plan, design, execute, get the results, learn from it. Tons of things just will not work. And that's part and parcel of the experience. I mean, experts become experts because they have failed a lot in the process of learning, and they become good after that
Wow.
to improve the odds of success, right? And so I just didn't understand that process until I got into it. And it was like 5 years, 6 years into it that I was beginning to recognize, oh my God, there's so much for me to learn before I can be really good at this thing. And it's not going to happen like just because I stayed up night. Like at college, I would just crash the night, and,
Yeah, and learn
be able to
something.
do great on the exam because, I was like preparing forever. But you can't do that. In reality, as a practitioner, as a professional, there are no like full-nighters that will help you through that. It is very consistent, very persistent towards what it is that you're trying to solve for. And you have to keep looking at it as like you are developing solutions to fundamentally in the marketplace that keeps evolving so fast. And in digital advertising in particular, I mean, we got tons of problems coming at us literally every day. And so you have to be very solution oriented. And I think every one of those is a learning opportunity. That's how you have to treat it. And over time, you get really good at it.
That's really cool. And you do have a couple podcasts that you're hosting as well, right? Can you talk about?
Yes, I do. And they are all designed to, frankly, help you do exactly that.
Oh,
Um, there's a podcast called Journey Insider,
uh-huh.
which is really professionals who have achieved prominence.
Okay.
And it's humbling to see what journeys they have gone through in their professional careers to arrive where they are.
Oh, wow.
And generally, it's very frank conversations about, the challenges they faced and the issues they were running into and how they found creative ways to really find solutions,
Yeah.
whether they did it themselves or they did it with mentors, they did it with teams, they did it with partners. However they did it, there were all these creative ways to do it. And that's what I want your audience to learn. It's like, look, don't think of you as the hero who is going to solve all these problems single-handedly. It just doesn't happen often. You will need lots of support. You will need lots of help. And so you just need to get smart enough to know where that help is going to come from and
Yeah.
be able to capitalize on that,
And
right?
learn from others' failures and learning.
Absolutely. And so that's what you get out of these Journey Insider conversations. The other one that I do is really for the young professionals. It's
Uh-huh.
called the Luminaries. These are the people who are really vocal about how they want the industry to change.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are like taking the baton and saying, frankly, the decision is now in our hands. We are the generation who are going to decide the future of media, and this is how we want to see it.
Wow.
And so those are fun conversations to hear how they're taking departure from where things were, which frankly, I love it because it challenges even me, who I think that I have learned a lot, but these people are challenging me by talking about things they would like to do differently than the patterns that we've laid out, which we believe are successful. But you know what? Success is all limited in time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And then
in our industry, the success formula changes really fast.
oh, all the time. There's no one success formula. I'm learning myself, and you're right. The more you talk to some people, the more you're like, oh wow, wow, this is so good. I need to write it on the sticky notes. Like, wow, you think that too? It's just about learning from others and giving everybody the chance to really prove themselves and really uplift them, because we all have a superpower we need to discover. And so I love
Absolutely.
So for our listeners, Seraj is going to send me all the information. I'm going to have it in the show notes, in the description. So make sure you go show him some love on LinkedIn, but also on the podcast. I think both of those podcasts are really important in our industry. So I'll make sure to put all the information in the show description. So thank you so much for stopping by, Seraj.
Of course, Ellen, it was such a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Likewise, have a wonderful day.
All right, take care. Have a good day.